Hi everyone, welcome. I hope you had a chance to grab some refreshments and make your way into the space. We have an amazing turnout and just wanted to welcome everybody again to the CSI Community Living Room. My name is Azad and I'm going to be one of the moderators for tonight's meeting along with my co-moderator Deepika. So just wanted to welcome everyone again to the CSI Community Living Room here in the neighborhood of Regent Park. And just wanted to do a land acknowledgement before we begin the meeting. And it's important that we acknowledge the history long before us, and we acknowledge that land acknowledgements are a formal statement recognizing the unique and enduring relationship that exists between us, Indigenous peoples, and these traditional territories. This is an honest way of recognizing First Nations, Métis, and or Inuit territories of the places that make up Canada. This land that we are on is the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. This land is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and host on this land. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we reside on, and a way of honoring the Indigenous people who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. It is important to understand, recognize, and honor the long-standing history that has brought each of us to reside on the land, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in the generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We all have place in the history, and we all have a place and a responsibility to the future, to steward this land and to protect it for several generations. Part of protecting the land is to make choices about how it is used and how we take care of each other. Like the dish with one spoon, one pump belt covenant, we create rules about how we all take from and share from the land and other people around us. Tonight, we are hosting an all candidates meeting on the land, an opportunity for you to hear from people in and around your community that want to represent you at City Council and make decisions on your behalf about how we use the land and how we share with each other. Listen carefully, be engaged, and make sure you vote. It may be a colonial system, but it is one of the ways that we get to have a voice about how we are in relationship to this land and how we protect it going forward. Again, I wanted to welcome everyone, and I'm going to hand it over to my co-moderator Deepika to get things started.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deepika, and I am a member of the St. Jamestown Resident Council, and I'm also an ambassador at the Corner. Professionally, I'm a doctoral student pursuing my research at Western University, and I'm very happy to be moderating tonight and look forward to the discussion amongst our candidates. I once again, on behalf of the Community Civic Engagement Collective, welcome you all, especially a very warm welcome to our candidates, Caroline, Chris, Colin, Dave, Miguel, and Nicki, who have graciously agreed to be part of our discussion. We have certain ground rules which we all will be adhering to during the discussion tonight, especially with regards to our conduct and honoring our timekeeping. We have a social contract for the candidates which has already been shared with them via email, but however, I'll go over it once again so the audience is also aware of it. The event is about stating your position on the issues that matter to your constituents, not about taking shots at or attacking your running mates. Please be mindful of this throughout the event. Zero tolerance for abusive, racist, sexist, homophobic language. Candidates may disagree with one another, but must be respectful while doing so. And candidates will be warned by the moderators once and removed on the second offense of abusive comments. Candidates will be verbally warned for aggressive language or aggressive tone. The moderator and the timelines are to be respected and honored. There's a very strict guideline on timing. Please respect the timing and the moderators. Our timekeeper, Ina, right here, will give you a warning using her yellow card at 30 seconds. her green card at 15 seconds and will use her pink card to signal that your time is up. The moderators will allow you to finish your sentence and then ask you to finish. Please use your time wisely, stay on the topic, and answer the question asked to you. If you're not answering the question, the moderator will guide you back to the question at the expense of your own time limit. I thank our candidates in advance for agreeing to follow and respect these rules. We also have a social contract for our participants who are joining us in person, as well as those who are joining us online. This is a community event to encourage civic engagement. We hope to create a safe space to understand the platforms of the parties present. Please help us by setting an example of respect and inclusivity and showcasing the values of our community. Please help us to ensure accessibility for all attendees by remaining silent during the proceedings when the candidates are speaking. We want to ensure that everyone is able to hear what is going on. Could I also, with regards to this, request everyone to keep their phones on silent, please? Please hold your question until the open question period. A mic will be brought to you if you are selected. Please ensure that your question is brief and to the point. You can introduce yourself by telling your name. We encourage you to engage in active listening and suspending judgment at all times. This is about your neighborhood and your municipal representation. Zero tolerance again for abusive, racist, sexist, homophobic language. In the event of abusive behavior of any kind, you will be warned by the moderators once and removed on the second offense. And once removed, you will not be allowed to come back to the event.
Thank you so much, Deepika, for that amazing introduction and for some important details regarding this event. One thing that I totally forgot to do was also give a little bit of information about myself as well. Deepika gave some great information. I'm representing the community of Moss Park and an organization called Building Roots. Thanks. Doing some amazing work in the community, and yeah, Building Roots is an amazing organization. So thank you, Deepika, again for that introduction, and let's just get started with the candidate intros and opening statements. So I guess candidates can introduce themselves and provide an opening statement. And sort of the one thing that we'd also like you to address is, why are you running for City Council? That's one of the questions you can address during the open statement, and you have 2.5 minutes to answer or provide that opening statement. And sort of the order that we're going to go in is we're going to start off from left to right. So Caroline, Chris, Colin, Dev, Miguel, and then Nicki. And during your opening statements, feel free to introduce yourselves. Also mention any pronouns, and also anything that you'd like to say, including the question itself. So first, I'll hand it off to Caroline.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, sounds okay. I just want to stand because I know there's a lot of people at the back, so I just want to make sure everybody can see. And also say thank you to everybody and the fellow candidates and for your opening remarks and that. So thank you. I'm Caroline Murphy, and I'm seeking the honour of representing you at City Council for Ward 13. Pronouns are she, her. A little bit about myself. I actually originally come from Ireland, and as a girl growing up in Ireland, you know, you were always somebody's daughter or somebody's sister or somebody's niece, and you weren't really encouraged to talk about yourself or your accomplishments. So when I was in university, an opportunity presented itself to come to Toronto as a part of the summer student work abroad program. So I jumped at it and came over. Now this was early 90s. And it was a challenging time, and it wasn't all roses, and it wasn't necessarily the best summer ever. But what I recognized was how open and welcoming Toronto was. And everybody worked together and collaborated and welcomed newcomers and new immigrants and supported each other. So I recognized this is where home will be. This is where I want to be, because here I will be able to grow and mature and develop and evolve and become Caroline Murphy. So when people come to visit now, that's my mother or my brother or my cousin. And that is what I'm not seeing as much of anymore. I have noticed in the last number of years, if we go back a decade, so in the mid-90s, when I came back, right after the day after my final exams, I moved into Ward 13. and I saw welcoming neighbours. What I see today isn't necessarily the same. It is an us versus them. There's no more social inclusion and social cohesion, and our leaders have been making us divisive. So that is why I'm running and asking you respectfully to listen and make your own opinions as to who you want representing you at City Hall. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. There we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Moise, also running for City Council here in Toronto Centre. I came to Canada when I was 6 years old. And I have lived in Toronto Centre for the last 19 years, right here in this ward. I have rooted myself here. I've worked at St. Mike's Hospital for 22 years in the emergency department, working as an addictions counselor, mainly focusing on those suffering from mental health and addiction and underhoused. I also own a business in the community, down in the St. Lawrence market for the last 17 years. So I'm very rooted here. And for the last 6 years, I've been your elected school board trustee, working with community leaders in the schools and in the community, bringing resources to our community. And I'm very proud of that. Toronto Centre is a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family. But yes, it's become very expensive. And I want to say to you that I want to work with you, the community, to be your leader, to make sure we have affordable housing, our communities are safe, and also, too, we have great transit across the ward. We know that the Ontario line is coming through, and we know there's a lot of things happening in our community. I only have very little time to actually go through my intro, but I do want to say to you that we have a limited time here today to talk about things in a comprehensive way. But I do have a comprehensive platform online at electchrismoise.ca. So please take the time, go through my comprehensive platform, and make an informed decision. Thank you so much.
You like that, eh? I'll wait it like this. Okay, but if it's just sitting there, then that doesn't mean that you have to talk about it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Hello? I guess, okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Colin Johnson, and I'm running to be your city councillor for this ward. I came here so many years ago. I think the dinosaurs were still roaming the streets, okay? I have lived, grown up in this ward. I have partied, I have played, I have loved. But I think what really matters to me about this ward is that it's still a community. There's still these little pockets, Cabbagetown, St. Jamestown. All of them have their own individual realities and lives and liberties. There are people there who have grown up there and who've been cemented there for decades. Yes, there have been challenges, and there definitely are challenges. Transportation, housing, the poisoning the crisis. All of these affect all of us. Safety, health. Where do your children go to school? What I say to you is that this is still our place. Toronto is still our city. My platform and my growth is about creating Toronto 2.0, not remaining the way we are. We cannot continue to be the way we are. I want to move forward. I want you to move forward with me. I want to listen to you because I think that is how we're going to get things done. But my purpose is to be on City Hall, so when you tell me stuff, I tell them. Thank you very much.
Are we good? We're good? Excellent, thank you. Oh, okay. Please don't trip.
Oh, we're live.
We're good?
Dev, it's working now.
Okay, we're good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nicki. So my name is Dave Ramsumair. I'm the founder of the Global Change Initiative and the Global Change Institute, which is an educational-based organization that focuses on inclusion, diversity, equity, and belonging, not only within our communities, but within our cities. I've worked with a number of cities across the globe to help utilize global systemic change within their cities, to build responsible change within their cities. I've also worked with a number of Canadian cities to do that as well. My background is, as a Toronto resident. I was born here. I was born in this very ward 38 years ago. I was raised in this ward. I started a business in the ward. I also had a part-time job in the ward. I also went to school in the ward. I was also married in the ward. I was divorced in the ward. I also had an apartment in the ward. I lived in a condo. I had a house. I was also homeless in the ward. And so what I want to bring to City Council is something unique. I want to bring your voice to that City Council. And as I've said in a number of other presentations, I have one job, and that is to hear you, to see you, to understand you, to bring your concerns to that City Hall. With the experience that I have over the last 25 years of working with the Global Change Initiative and Global Change Institute, understanding the difference between the bureaucracy and how the community works, and how to bring those community concerns to the city. I see you, I hear you, I understand you, because I am you. And that's why I want to represent each and every one of you at City Hall. Thank you very much.
Before you start, I'm going to give you a little bit more wire. Okay, more wire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was restricted by what was holding me back.
Thank you, Nicki. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Hello. Can you hear me at the back? All right. My name is Miguel, Miguel Avila. I'm originally from South America, Peru. I'm indigenous. I have lived in this world since 2011. I had 3 children, Melissa, Michael, and Michelle. I have lived in Toronto for over 32 years. And over these 32 years, I see so much injustices done to poor people, disabled people. And that is the reason I'm running for City Council, because the opportunity came out as Christy Wontang. I want to acknowledge Christy Wontang. She has been one of our best allies at City Hall. I say this because I'm also a member of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. And thanks to the collaboration of her office and Susie Morrison, our former MP, we were able to achieve $26.8 million for community benefits for this neighborhood, part of phases 4 and 5 revitalization. The other reason I'm running for council is because Doc 4 in 2018 cut City Council seats from 44 to 26, and that is shameful. Our voices have been reduced. Our opportunity to speak for our community has been decimated. So now I have an opportunity to bring that voice that is missing, the voice of indigenous people at City Hall. We don't have currently no representation that speak for indigenous peoples at Toronto City Hall, and that's what I'm trying to change. Bringing the experience of indigenous lives, especially when we don't have no housing, and that is shameful. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, for staying engaged, for participating in a democratic process. My name is Nicki Ward. That's okay, thanks. That's a little early for an applause break, but thank you anyway. My name is Nicki Ward. I grew up in a place a lot like this, but before that I got to travel a bit, and I came here on a business trip a little over 35 years ago, and I fell in love. It was a moment, I can remember it vividly like it was yesterday. I fell in love with Toronto Centre. I'd been working in the United States and that wasn't working for me. What I found here was the perfect mixture of North American hustle, some opportunities that weren't available to me growing up, but also this wonderful flavor that others have described, this kind of village within a city. And all of that encompassed in a caring environment, which is what I grew up in, an area where we care for each other, with health, with mutual benefits. So that's why I decided on the spot that this is where I wanted to live. Now, I grew up with the notion of service, give of yourself what you can. And in that time, I've done things for this community that with other people. I've been on the board of directors of the 519, which is a city agency, and done an awful lot of work up there in the LGBT community. I've also, I'm on the board of directors of my own co-op. I'm a big believer in co-op housing at City Park. I'm on the board of directors there. And I've also engaged in federal work to change human rights at the charter level, the Constitution of Canada, and with a team, was proud to lead the team to change and include gender identity and gender expression at the federal level. And that is the most important piece of legislation, most difficult piece of legislation that is possible to change. But in addition to those social ideas, I've also got a background in the business community. I used to be the vice president of an insurance company with a large number of employees, a large budget measured in millions of dollars. And I think now what I need in this ward is a combination of small business skills, but also the large business skills to deal with the fact that this ward is now the size of a small city. Anyway, I hope to convince you that this is a good place to place your vote. My name's Nicki Ward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the candidates, for introducing yourself and also sharing your thoughts and opinions on why you're running for the City Council. Now we move on to inviting our candidates' thoughts on certain prepared questions which were sent by members of our community. These questions have already been shared with the candidates via email yesterday. You have 1.5 minutes to answer these questions each, and I will share the order in which all of you will answer. So the order is the same as your introductions for this question. So we'll start from here and we'll move on to Nicki. The question that was sent by a member of the Moss Park community is, how will you support the Moss Park community for the implementation of a fully funded social development plan that will address important needs for the community? Caroline, can I please start with you? Thank you.
Thank you again. So, the Moss Park Social Development Plan is actually part of my platform. The work that has been done in Moss Park is inspiring. But in order for Moss Park to succeed, we as a city need to come together, and we need to make sure that the relevant funds are available for their social development plan. And to that end, I will fight tooth and nail to get every dollar. You know, at least $500,000 is coming to Regent Park, and we've seen the success that a social development plan has. And the work that is going on by leaders like Azad right here, it's inspiring. And we as a city have to recognize the importance of social inclusion and social cohesion. I will say it over and over again, and we must find the monies. The city can afford it, because we cannot afford not to support the Moss Park development plan and everything that that means to that community. And the Roots group and the fact that people are lining up for food, we must come together, and the funding is available. We can make it happen, and I will do everything in my power as your councillor to be the advocate, to be the voice, and to make sure that the monies are secured, because the expense of not, it's not worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do support the Moss Park Social Development Plan, yes, but I just want to be clear. There's no plans right now for revitalizing Moss Park. But I do want to work with the community to make sure that the community, I work with them. They decide what they want. They decide what they want to see, and I'll work with them to implement that. I have the experience working the school board, working with the indigenous community to bring forth a JK to 12 school. And that vision came from the indigenous community. And I will treat the Moss Park revitalization the exact same way. and bring about the benefits that we've seen in Regent Park. And also, too, we know that, you know, with the Eglinton line, for example, we had 10% of the workers there be hired by the local community. Those sort of things I want to see. The Ontario line is coming through in the Moss Park area. We need to have a voice as to what benefits we receive when that line is being built. And additionally, I'm running out of time, but again, the Moss Park Community Center is being revitalized. And we need to make sure there's public consultation so that the community's voice is heard and perhaps replicate or perhaps like the Regent Park Community Center and pool. So again, there are opportunities there for all of us to have a voice.
We'll figure this out. Hello? Okay, so I'm going to begin with just an easy statement. We need, first of all, to change the Moss Park plan so it becomes a revitalization plan and not just what it is right now, okay? Right now, there is no money set out to actually make any changes to provide for things like a library, schools. If you're going to change an area, you need to make it feasible for families to exist and live there. That's what makes a community. If you do not have schools, if you do not have libraries, then nothing is going to happen. Right now, the area that is Moss Park is actually one of the places where we're suffering from the opioid crisis, which is something that has not really been mentioned by most of the people here. We need to address that realistically because that is what is affecting issues of safety within our community. We need to address the opioid crisis. We need to address the fact that children, young people are not being engaged by having issues and places that they can go. That is part of what I would like to change with the Moss Park revitalization plan. Therefore, my push and my promise to you is it will not be a social development plan, it will be a revitalization plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh. There we go. There we are. Now we're working. Thank you. So in terms of looking at this as a revitalization plan or as a city strategic plan, what I would like to actually look at first is what does the community want? And as I mentioned before, I see you, I hear you, I understand you. Nothing is done without you. Consultation from the community. What would you like to see each and every step of the way? I would like to look at that community as public safety and mental health first. This is something that we need to address within the community, not just within Moss Park, but within all of Ward 13. Community safety and mental health together combined as one. I would like to look at that. I would also like to look at how do we create better access to transit for each and every person. Transit is something that allows us to get around not only in our ward, but get out of the ward, get out to our family, friends, suburbs, whatever it is. You name it, fill in the blank. Transit is important. Transit has also become very unaffordable. Transit has also become very inaccessible to people that need it most. What I would like to look at is, as the former chair of the MOVE, the Big Move Task Force, that encouraged Metrolinx to spend $2 billion, I would actually look at doing the same with the TTC. I would look at the same at doing that with policing. Sorry, I see my time is going. I would like to look at the same with policing to create the Department of Community Safety and Mental Health. And then also, as a city developer, consult with the community. What are those things you need? Thank you very much. I'll continue. I'm not gone.
Moss Park revitalization is important because, as my colleagues had said, we have an addiction problem in this community, and we need to deal with those illness in our society. I agree with the statement made by Chris with regards the indigenous ability to protect the land. And in that regards, there is a petition going on to save 56 streets in Moss Park from being cut down right now. So please go see my sister over there. She's signing up people to stop the cutting of 56 streets because that's what indigenous people will do. Is save trees, save the water, save the land. And I believe that the Regent Park Neighborhood Association is a good model that most part can follow up, because we were able to secure money for our communities. Needless to say, the phases 1, 2, and 3 was a total disaster. We only achieved 31 jobs and 12 opportunities for home ownership. And we're gonna do better on phases 4 and 5. Thank you.
The question is, how will you support the Moss Park community for the implementation of a fully funded social development plan that will address important needs for this community?
Thank you. The answer is, firstly, by doing my homework before I get here, and secondly, by actually attending the meetings that deal with this project specifically. So I attended one on several, most recent of which was on October 3rd. So without getting into the details, because we don't have all that much time, I can point to a few examples of where I've already been at work trying to help the community before I actually get the job that I'm applying for. We know that there's a swimming pool over here that has never been fully functional. There's a whirlpool in there that seems to leak at the drop of a hat, the heating constantly broken. It was only after a lot of people, not just me admittedly, but a lot of people brought attention to the fact that we have a swimming pool over here that has been much touted, but doesn't actually work, that it got fixed. See, this is the point. As your councillor, I can change the laws, but more importantly, I can use the power of office to shame people into doing the right thing. To speak more about the Community Development Fund here, it is shameful that developers build the building and then pay afterwards. That's the current system. In our platform, what we're saying is, give us the community benefits in advance, in cash, and then if you build it or don't build it, that's your problem. That way, the Community Development Fund doesn't become our problem long after the building has been built and the developers are long gone. So those two practical examples of how to answer the precise question that's been asked. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for our candidates for your responses for this question. Moving on to the second prepared question. The second question is, the developments in our neighborhoods and the challenge of affordable housing by those seeking to profit from access to basic housing has made it difficult for many of us. How will you invest in more affordable and deeply affordable rental programs, as well as rent-to-own for lower income residents in our neighborhoods? We're going to go in the order, starting off with Chris, then Colin, Dave, Miguel, Nicki, then Caroline. Chris, you can start off.
Thank you for the question. You know, we are in a housing crisis, and we have been for some time. And there are initiatives that are taking place right now, and there are initiatives that could be done immediately to resolve some of the issues. For example, building triplexes and duplexes across all neighborhoods across the city. That one initiative can actually make a significant difference. And I know it's been a long time since we actually built co-op housing here in Canada. But there's $1.5 billion available from the federal government to actually build co-op housing. And the city needs to tap into those resources to make that happen. Yes, there are things in place that slows that down, but you know, we need to work with the federal government and work with the private sector and nonprofit groups to make sure we start building those housing. Second, I know the city also have started, the time kills me. The city also is willing to actually give lands to nonprofit developers to actually build deep, low-income housing. And again, that is something that I will make sure that is done quickly, and so that we can actually live in a more affordable city. Thank you.
Perfect time. You're getting good. Hi, everybody. I live in Toronto community housing. I was homeless. I know what it's like. to be out there with no place to go, have to go into a shelter. So there are a couple of things we need to consider. What do we mean by affordable housing? Like, it's different for everybody. Some people, depending on what you make, it's affordable. Other people, it's not. So I think we need to look at this from a couple of ideas. A, employment, because that would help a lot of people out of this issue. But we also need, as a city, to start building and investing in what we consider to be affordable housing. That lies on the purview of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. So my first thing is to fix that, because that is a mess from top to bottom. We cannot continue, nor will we be able to build and function realistically if the organization that is to manage these new houses is in itself a mess. Simple and easy, okay? That has to be fixed. And as has been said, we also can tap into various fundings for co-ops, rent to own, all of these things, giving people the opportunity and chance so that they can own and pass it on to their children, because that is how people build communities. It's that investment transferred from parents to their kids that helps. Thank you.
Sorry, would you mind repeating the question once again?
Sure. So the developments in our neighborhoods and the challenge of affordable housing by those seeking to profit from access to basic housing has made it difficult for many of us. How will you invest in more affordable and deeply affordable rental programs, as well as rent-to-own, for lower-income residents in our neighborhoods?
Excellent, thank you. And so this is actually a program that I've worked on in the past where, as elected officials, we work with the private sector. I think that's going to be key here, to develop more affordable housing, a minimum of 20% affordable housing in our communities. Not only that, but what I think we need to do is also revitalize Toronto community housing. When you give people a sense of dignity and pride in where they live, we understand that they act different, that they revitalize themselves, their communities, they uplift themselves. They do feel that sense of pride, and so they can move into that supposed affordable housing, which I am going to ask right now. What is the real problem here? It's not affordable housing. I'll be very honest, because there is a stopgap here. To afford affordable housing, that means you need to be able to afford it to begin with. But there is a gap here between homelessness and affordable housing. So what do we need to do there? We need to create more solutions that keep people from actually becoming homeless. We need more temporary shelters. We need more temporary housing that allow people to then get into Toronto community housing, that they feel a sense of pride in, that then allow them the opportunity to uplift themselves, get work so that they can afford the affordable housing, which I don't think anybody is addressing. We just keep talking about affordable housing without understanding that prior to that, there is homelessness, which needs to be addressed to get people into that affordable housing. I also don't think that we have a crisis. I think we have a willingness problem of our elected officials to actually not bend to the whims of the developers. I made it in time. Right in time.
Hi. All right. I've been an activist since 2010 at City Hall. And one of the longest standing conversations that we have was inclusionary zoning. Happily to say that we have some inclusionary zoning made, a tiny effort, but we need more than that. I agree we need to have 20% of the social housing increasing in construction, and rent to own is the good way to go. Unfortunately, I had to bring some bad news. Again, Barbara will criticize me for repeating the name Doug Ford, the premier of this province. But again, this individual is holding back money to the City of Toronto operational budget. Without the funding from the province, we will never achieve all those goals. So this is the bad news I had to tell you guys. We voted Doug Ford, we didn't, but 40% in this province because they didn't care about voting. So you see my t-shirt, vote. Because that's the only way that we can get our voices heard and change the way that's happening. I got arrested at Trinity Bellwoods Park, and I know how difficult it is for people to find housing. Go by Allen Gardens right now. There are 32 tents right there. You know what the offer they're giving to them is a hotel room and no permanent housing in a crowded shelter, and that's shameful. Thank you.
So, some years ago, there was a development just a few hundred meters north of here where they demolished community housing with the promise of replacing it with even more affordable housing. Now, we do have some of the nice condos here that some of my colleagues actually live in. Not here necessarily, but elsewhere. But what we don't have is the community housing that was promised. Now, there's obviously a breakdown here, and anybody who thinks there's not a crisis going on is not paying attention. I disagree with those who believe that our parks should become a permanent solution for broken shelters, lack of housing, lack of support. I do not agree with that. I believe that this is beyond an emergency and there's a crisis here. And that the first thing I must do as your councillor is make sure that we have people not forced to live outdoors, but to live indoors, for heaven's sake. Thereafter, to immediately fast track through the co-op system, which I do understand, and I am also a liaison with the CHFT. The point is, we have a program in place that will immediately help convert some of those Toronto community housing into co-op housing. I do not agree with turning over open land to developers who claim to be not-for-profit, because sometimes they accidentally make a profit and they accidentally don't bring the housing that they promised in the first place.
Hi. The affordability issue is a crisis. You're not going to get anybody who disagrees with that. But there's a couple of things we also need to think about. The definition of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, we know doesn't work. We know that there are going to be a massive need with the influx of people coming into Ontario over the next 10 years that we do need to create units. Not everything has to happen in Ward 13. We need to plan smartly. We need a development plan that makes sense. We need to ensure, we're talking about the SSHAs. Our own Auditor General has shown how $13.2 million was wasted. We have people living in encampments, and yes, absolutely shame on us in a city like this to have people living in an encampment, but we need to work together to the right plan, because all our communities, nobody's going to say there's not a crisis, but we need to do smart development. We need to plan, and we need to plan from beginning to end and get the right people in place and have accountability so that when we are developing, it is sustainable. It is meeting the needs of our communities for multi-generational individuals and seniors, and we have the right supports in place. Thank you. I'll keep quiet.
Thank you so much, all of you, for your thoughts. Now we move on to the next prepared question, and I'll read the question now. On behalf of the Regent Park youth and their experiences in this community, how would you transform the culture of policing in our ward to improve the trust that young people have in the policing of their community? And the order that we'll follow for this question is Colin, Dave, Miguel, Nicki, Caroline, and Chris. So we start with you, Colin.
I had to get this one to start, didn't I? Yeah. Policing. So let's look at the reports coming out of the police department, first of all. They recently admitted that there is racism, which is a good step. It took them, what, 150 years. But you know, that's, hey, we're getting there. So that is the problem, okay? There definitely is an issue relating to police when they deal with black, people of color, indigenous youth. So my thing is, first of all, ask the youth how they would like to go about this. The second thing for me is that the onus is not on the youth, the onus is on the police to get back that respect, okay? And that is not something that you're gonna do overnight. It's not easy, but there are methods that we can do and we can try, okay? Consultations with the police. I know, for example, that the Toronto Community Housing actually recently just arranged a meeting between some of its kids with the police, with the chief of police. Sadly, they arranged it at the last minute, so there was not enough response. But these are some of the things we need to do to engage. We also need to have counselors as well. We need to decriminalize the police force, and we need to take some of that funding that they have, the $1.3 billion, 80% of which goes to salaries, to start engaging and building stuff where youth can be engaged, where parents can be engaged, and where we can build that community and rebuild that trust. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
That's okay. I feel like I'm going to have to do this 1-point form so I can just get it within that time limit, because there's a lot that I would like to say as a BIPOC LGBT youth-ish, don't laugh, youth-ish person. And that is the fact that I understand this firsthand. When the police is called, where is that mental health officer, is what I would like to ask. What I would actually like to see is reallocation of funding for policing. Instead of only these types of officers that specialize in this type of behavior and this type of organization, where is the other one? Because again, I want to go back to that idea of community safety and mental health. Thank you. And that is exactly what I want to look at. There is a need for the police services. I will never deny that. But there is a need for proper education of our public services and the people that work for us. And that's what I would like to look at. Proper mental health education, not a one-day seminar that is taken for an hour to understand that idea. I would like to see specialized police services that deal with mental health, de-escalation, and such related causes within the community, so that when they are called, they can actually dispatch which one is needed for this case. That way we can avoid anybody who is encountering a scenario like myself, where they encounter a violent scenario with the police for no apparent reason. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a long-standing activism with the Toronto Police. I have been a regular since the year 2010. I attended yesterday a board meeting of the Toronto Police, and we were discussing the word training of future police officers. And one of the things that really impressed me is that they want to incorporate some of the lessons learned from Minnesota with regards to George Floyd. And they were trying to tell the new recruits how to engage with the youth in a way that is less intimidating. And now that program will start in 2023, and I look forward for that discussion at the Police Services Board, because I told the Mayor John Tory, I want to be at the table. Nothing about us without us. That's what my experience as an indigenous person. I have been carded, I have been racial profiled, I have been arrested many times. So that is because I speak about the injustices done by the police. When it comes to the youth, what we need to have is safe spaces. And that's what the goal of the Phases 4 and 5 in Regent Park is, to create safe spaces for our youth to hang out and be just kids. Thank you very much.
So I believe the question is, what are we going to do? That seems like a good, fair question. Is it? What are we going to do? Or what do we think?
How would you transform the culture of policing in our ward?
Okay. So I've been an advocate for 35 years, and I've been doing a lot of work in this field throughout that period of time. Firstly, as a volunteer with the 519 Community Center, dealing with the worst abuses of LGBT oppression, what have you. I was also deeply engaged within the community. I think you remember there was a dreadful series of murders. I won't repeat the guy's name, but there was a serial killer in my community, and the police relationship was so poor that they couldn't get evidence back and forward. I worked directly with the police. I was extremely critical, but in a productive fashion. I was also critical on the issues of Tess Ritchie, whose body was found by a mother in a few steps just down the road from me. The police failed to get out of their police car, for heaven's sakes. And then, of course, poor Allura Wells, who was misidentified because of a breakdown in communication between 53 Division and 51 Division. Who watches the watchman? It's an old phrase. And nothing can happen unless you actually show up to these meetings and hold police officers to account. We pay them a great deal of money to do service for us. It needs to be sensitive to local folk, but it must provide safety for all of us. And that does not happen. They've been trained enough over the past few years, for heaven's sakes. It's a straightforward job. Keep the streets safe. We will pay you to do a job. I can't believe we're even having this conversation still 20 years on. Thank you. I gotta say.
Okay.
Stay on the right, Caroline.
So I want to tell you a little story first. In 1954, a young kid stopped a police officer in the United States, and he said his bike had been stolen. And whoever had stolen it, he's going to whoop him. And the police officer asked him, well, do you know how to fight? And he said no. So the police officer took him to the boxing gym where he mentored youth and where he taught youth how to fight. In 1960, this youth won the Olympic gold medal as Cassius Clay. We might know him as Muhammad Ali. So we know, and I'm going to quote from his funeral, that basically, in a packed stadium filled with former presidents and dignitaries, America must never forget that when a cop and an inner city kid talk together, then miracles can happen. So what we need to do is listen to our youth, engage with our youth, fund the police so that they can mentor. Not one person I've met with has said they don't want more policing. They want community policing. They want engagement. We must integrate and engage our communities to ensure that the programs and procedures are in place to reintegrate juvenile offenders. We must recognize our youth's voice in the decision process and keep working together. Thank you.
You know, I used to be a police officer, but more importantly, I am a school board trustee. And when being a school board trustee, one of the things I've always said to my superintendent when they are hiring or staffing our schools here in Toronto Centre, in that make sure the VP or principal look like the students that they serve. It goes a long way, believe it or not. And secondly, I believe that when it comes to policing, we should focus on enforcement and and prevention, crime prevention. More importantly, a lot of our young kids today actually suffer from mental health, right? The pandemic has made it crazy. I'm trying to use soft language here. And I'm so happy that, you know, we'll have a 3-digit number, 988, as of next year, a non-emergency number that when a child or a youth or someone in our community is in need of help, they will receive it. And we should start supporting services like the Gersten Center that actually comes to a non-emergency situation where mental health exists, and they can actually deal with it in a professional way. The police have been mandated to do all things for everyone, and that's actually not fair to the police because they're not trained to do everything. They're trained to do specific jobs. I know because I was one. But you know, if you offer the police more money, they will take it, and they'll do the best that they can. So you're going to kill me today. But anyways, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our candidates for your responses for this question. Also our timekeeper. For this section of the night, we're going to be moving to audience questions. So we're taking questions directly from the audience. The questions that were posed to the candidates were prepared questions, so we had 3 prepared questions. So now we're going to be taking questions from the audience, both in person and online. I'm going to start off by having one question in person first. The question itself is to be 1 minute, and the responses are also 1 minute. One and a half. Okay, 1.5 minute responses. Awesome. So I guess I see a hand. I think the first one I saw right in the middle over there. So I'm going to go over there and get a question. Oopsie.
So anybody among the candidates could respond to this question, that what procedures or what programs would you take in place in order to remove or to deal with the unemployment of the immigrants, and especially the newcomers, like the qualified people who make it here, but the opportunities are not offered to them, like depriving them of the career opportunities for certain reasons of Canadian experience or whatever is there. So how would you deal with this specific population of the qualified people but not getting the right things that they deserve? Thank you.
Awesome. So we'll go in the order of Dave, Miguel, Nicki, Caroline, Chris, Colin.
Thank you very much. And from what I understood, that was specifically looking at skilled individuals who come to the country, newcomers, that are not able to find work as a result of lack of Canadian experience. Is that correct? Okay, so one thing that I would look at, actually, there is an office that exists, but it's highly underutilized, which is something that I think is so unfortunate. This should be introduced to every newcomer that comes here, which is the Office of the Fairness Commissioner. Some may have heard of it. I believe most people don't even know that it exists. But the Office of the Fairness Commissioner is something that exists in every single province here in Canada. And when a newcomer comes here, what they can do is actually find out how their credentials will equal whatever it is in Canada and what they need to do in order to access the same level of work with the same levels of qualifications and skills, et cetera, that they have based on whatever their education was where they were. So something that I would personally like to do is actually beef up the Office of the Fairness Commissioner. I think that's something that was highly underutilized that needs to, and so that newcomers actually understand that their skills are valued when they come here. And there is an opportunity for each and every one of them. Isn't that why they came here to begin with? Because they saw opportunity. So let us give them that opportunity. We need to help them navigate the system. That is truly what I feel is the hardest part, navigating that bureaucracy. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I think that is a federal matter that you need to address with your MP. But again, I want to say a word of hope. The federal government is allowing now students to work a few hours during the week. So that is commendable of the Prime Minister's office. I think other professions are being allowed to be tested and start looking for work. There shouldn't be no car drivers working on the streets, and there used to be mathematicians, scientists in their homes of origin, and it shouldn't be that way. We should give opportunity to everybody. But here in the local municipal level, we have a problem. For instance, I am a TCEC building resident, and I'm a proud TCEC representative. One of the things that we have is Local 416. When we want to get jobs for our community, we find some systemic barriers that we can break through. So I want to expand that opportunity so we don't have to be unionized to get a job. So we have to improve the laws that matter for the municipalities so that we can incorporate more people to work. And in this case, for Toronto Community Housing, those barriers should be eliminated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Excellent. That's a very big question. And let me begin by talking about unemployment in Toronto Centre in a general sense. We know the cure for poverty? Money. And so full employment means we can raise the standard of living for everybody. One of the great things about being a city councillor is that you can act as a clearinghouse for information. It's true that some of this is provincial, by the way. If you're talking about the medical profession, is provincially regulated, but some of this is also federally regulated. And a good councillor can act as a clearinghouse to coordinate with the provincial representative, who is Kristen Wong-Tam, and the federal representative, who I'm just having a brain moment here. But the point is that, say again? Oh, Marcy, of course, yeah, Marcy. Yes, Marcy. But the point is to have a collegial relationship to help facilitate getting things like transcripts and what have you. The other thing I'd like to point out is that we have an awful lot of employment by the City of Toronto through the construction process. And there is an Indigenous centre opening up right now to begin to train people so that those jobs are not given to people who drive into town, ruin our streets, and then drive out and vote for you-know-who, but actually to keep those jobs in our neighbourhood. And finally, the City of Toronto in the last, during COVID, has laid off an enormous number of people on the part-time side, and those represent new opportunities while we help people get the transcripts and the equivalencies from wherever they come from originally. So thank you for an excellent question.
I think that is a great question that's been asked. Now, in my opening remarks, I talked about the opportunities that were available to me as a new immigrant and how we worked together to support each other. And it was through my neighbours and the friends and my profession that I was able to build a life here. And there are people coming in with incredible skill sets and with great knowledge, and have gone through their trainings in their home country. Now, some of that, it just requires maybe sitting another exam just to confirm that, you know, the standards are the same or we're meeting the same educational requirements. But also, I'm going to go back to something else I said. We have created an environment of divisive language, and we've not been supporting each other. We need to welcome our new immigrants coming in, and we need to give them the supports that we as residents and neighbours can give. We can give people a break. We can work with them. We can introduce them. And as a city, we can come together and ask and work towards ensuring that it's an easier, paid-for transition to the level of education that is potentially required here, or getting your papers to say you're succeeded. But I come back to the one simple thing. We need to work together and support each other and stop the us versus them. Thank you.
So my fellow candidates were correct when they said that this is a provincial and federal issue. But nonetheless, you know, in positions of privilege like myself, being a school board trustee, you can advocate for your community. And I have done that at the Ontario Public School Board Association, of which I have been a member for the last 4 years. And what I mean by that is that working with other school boards and the provincial government, I've been able to actually get non-certified teachers to fill the gaps where needed. And so there is value in these things. And I alluded to the Ontario line earlier in that there are skilled jobs available, good paying jobs available, if your counselor actually advocates on your behalf to actually have a good paying job. So again, there are opportunities there that can be had. Another example is phases 4 and 5 taking place shortly, you know, here in Regent Park with Tridel. There's an opportunity for the counselor to speak with Tridel to make sure that our community is actually employed in the buildup of phases 4 and 5. And again, these are good, skilled, paying jobs that you could actually retain and perhaps move on to something else when the time comes. So those are the things that are tangible that I can do in the role of city councilor.
So I guess we all remember that there was a pandemic, right? Okay. So if we all remember, there was a crisis with nurses. Well, guess what? Suddenly, nurses from foreign countries were being fast-tracked to fill the void. Remember that, okay? So we can actually do this. It can be done. People coming from other countries with degrees can be fast-tracked. All it needs is mentorship and a system set up and put in place. TMU University, which used to be Ryerson, which used to be Ryerson Polytechnic, anyway, whatever the case may be, keeping track is a part of me. Okay, they actually have a program where they actually do fast-track people. Okay? Doctors can be fast-tracked. There's a system within the University of Toronto Medical School. Okay? So we can do it. What we need to do is to actually sit back, link people to these programs, which is where we come in as counselors, and that is what we need to do. Communication, streamlining, setting up a system where people can be tested to standardized basis. That's what we need. It's not complex. Trust me, when pandemics occur, we find solutions. Let's just think of every day as a damn pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. Our next audience question will be from a member of the audience joining us online. So I will quickly...
So this is a question from a person named Waleed, and he is from Regent Park and works in Moss Park, and he's in a loud cafe, which is why he's not asking his question and I'm doing it for him. What would you do to build consensus with other councillors to oppose the agenda of a strong mayor? What would you do to build consensus with other councillors to oppose the agenda of a strong mayor?
And the order we will follow for this question is Miguel, Nicki, Caroline, Chris, Colin, and then Dave.
Thank you, Waleed, for the question. I want to say that I am not in favor of the mayor's power given by the province of Ontario, Doug Ford. It is an intrusion of our city democracy. It's a threat to our democracy. And basically what we need is 2/3 votes to go against the mayor's decisions. You know, many of those decisions will be influenced by Doug Ford's insiders who will tell the mayor, you know, what is good for the province. It's not, as you know, Doug Ford doesn't care about people with disabilities. Doug Ford doesn't care about people who are poor. And the mayor doesn't care either. So what we need is a strong new mayor, like my good friend over here, Isabella Gang, who's running for mayor, and other people that as well who are running against John Tory. It's time to tell John Tory, enough is enough, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Waleed. There's a big challenge that Mayor John Tory was never a pushover, never exactly a weak mayor. And now with new powers, it's more entrenched than ever. Now, setting aside the rhetoric of for a strong mayor, you need to have a strong councillor. You also need to have a smart one. Because the fact of the matter is that partisan politics at City Hall does not work to our benefit. No matter what stripe John Tory is, the fact of the matter is we have to work with people with whom we disagree on some important issues. We have never had a councillor, well, we haven't for the past 12 years had a councillor from this ward that sat on the executive committee. And without getting too deep into the weeds, if you're not on the executive committee, you're not part of the budget, and if you're not part of the budget, you're not part of the solutions. So a strong councillor needs to represent us vigorously, but also be smart, collegial if necessary, and work across party lines. That's why we have a coalition of colors on our literature. It's not just good design, it's built in to how we approach this. So, what we will not do is engage in name calling. What we will do is look for workable, sustainable solutions that work for Toronto Centre and Toronto as a whole. And doing that, I believe that we can endure a strong mayor if we have a strong councillor. Thank you.
I think asking about strong mayor is an important question. It's something that's new. It's coming down the pipeline. And as some people have noted, you know, a three-quarter agreement with city councillors can, you know, overturn if they're trying to act unilaterally. You as residents don't deserve an autocrat. So we know that having a strong mayor regime where somebody can unilaterally make decisions may not necessarily be in the best interest of us as residents. But we also recognize that sometimes when people are just not reaching a consensus and not agreeing, then we're stalwarting and we're not moving forward. So I have to say that as a city councillor and with my years of experience in the private sector and negotiating to win-win situations, it is us as strong councillors. But more importantly, we're strong councillors because we have you behind us. And it is your voice that I am here to represent and listen. And then to bring my years of experience when working with clients globally and domestically and bringing that into City Hall so that we find consensus. As I say to teams regularly, a good deal means not everybody walks away happy. But us understanding, listening, working together, we can manage a strong mayor because we're Ward 13. Thank you.
You know, for 6 years, I've worked on a very diverse school board. And the way I've gotten through and the way I've succeeded the way I have is because I focus on issues. You know, people get into public service because they care about their city. And we can find common cause always. And again, the new mayor system, or the strong mayor system, holds the mayor to account. He can hire and fire staff. He appoints people to heads of departments. So I'm sure, you know, going forward, I can work whoever the mayor is with, who is. For example, you know, again, we have a housing crisis in the city, and the current city councillors, including John Tory, if he's reelected, believes that there is a housing crisis. And he wants to work to figure out how to mitigate the issues that are before us today, including crime and so forth. And those are the things I care about. And those are the things that you care about, because you've told me. So I want to make sure we build the duplexes and triplexes. And we also build affordable housing and mitigate the crime in the ward and make sure we have proper transit and less congestion. Those are the things I'm focused on. Those are the things that you said to me that's important. And those are the things I'll speak to my council colleagues about, because they too have the same issues in their wards.
So this strong mayor thing might be new to Canada, but most of the world has always had mayors who had a veto power. So, I mean, I think we are in many cases just joining the rest of the world. How am I going to deal with this? Well, I'm gay, I'm black, I used to be involved with people who use drugs. I think I know how to have a conversation with most people, generally speaking, and get people to the table. I mean, I'm on the decriminalization proposal for the City of Toronto. I have worked in various other areas where it has required people, we have had to deal with people who to say did not come from the same place I did, but we can sit, we can talk, we can have that conversation. He was given these powers because they want to push through the affordable housing, which I'm all about. However, I also think that if we get to the point where the mayor really begins to strut his stuff a bit too much, then as a council, we can sit back together and have that conversations with him. This is about dealing with each other, respecting each other, talking, opening, taking what your views are, and looking what's best for Toronto. As I said, creating Toronto 2.0. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to address two things that my fellow candidates mentioned. I know, Nicki, you said that a strong mayor requires a strong council. And?
You weren't listening.
I will just say one thing that I would love to add to that is a collaborative council. People that can work together, people that can get along, people that can understand that this is the agenda for the people rather than the agenda of the mayor. Also, as you mentioned, this is us joining the rest of the world. We know that this is going to happen whether we kind of like it or not. So how do we work within that? How do we as a community come together and say, this is what we would like from this? And that is my one job, to listen to you. My job isn't to get involved in all of that. My job isn't to cross or not cross, sorry, those party lines as my candidate had, or my fellow candidate had mentioned, is to actually be politically ambiguous. Is to represent you. What are your interests? And not align with any particular parties, which is not what I intend to do. It's get along with everybody. How do we make the best decisions for each and every one of you? Now, I was born in the village. I was raised in Flemo, lived in St. James, lived in Regent Park. I will say one thing, come at me, bro. Can't handle me.
Thank you so much. Our next audience question will be from our live audience. So, I saw your hand up the first, so could you please keep your question brief and to the point? Thank you.
Hi. Climate change, whether we like it or not, is happening. And I just want to know what your plans are for dealing with that in a evidence-based way, and about transportation and food and water and everything that goes with it.
Thank you. The order that we'll start with is Nicki, Caroline, Chris, Colin, Dave, and Miguel.
Well, if you're asking me to solve climate crisis in the next 4 years, I will do my best. But I will tell you that, you know, I ran provincially recently, even though our campaign now is everybody. I ran as the Green Party candidate. And my candidacy today is the only one that is fully endorsed by Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party of Ontario. It's also fully informed by their platform, which was generally recognized across party lines to be the most inclusive, economically sustainable, and ambitious and workable. I've also signed off on the TAA and various other environmental processes. But in short, here in Toronto Centre, we have an amazing opportunity to lead the world. See, too often, the City of Toronto looks south to our friends at New York City, a concrete jungle, for an example of how to make a city area green. I've come from Europe, a small place somewhat like this, where we have different mixed use. We have a certain amount of park space. I believe we can turn Toronto Centre, this small little jewel, into the leader in Toronto, the leader in Ontario, the leader in Canada, and frankly the leader in North America, by introducing some low-hanging fruit, to use a green analogy, by preserving our parks, by making green space on top of our buildings, by making sure that you can plug in a car anywhere in Toronto Centre. Small, achievable, attainable, economically sustainable things to be done right now. Look at the website for more stuff. Thank you very much for a great question.
Climate change is real. We know. You asked for evidence-based. Science is telling us. We see it, we feel it, we have storms, and we have, you know, new weather systems. So, quite frankly, if we don't solution the climate crisis and address the environment, then what are any of us doing? We won't have a city to fight over city council for. It is a crisis that we need to take seriously. Now, I've recently become a part of a Transform TO, which is an initiative that the city has to help with addressing climate change, and I'm what's called a Neighbourhood Climate Action Change Champion. And our whole focus is to spread the word about the realities of the environment and the challenges we're facing, so that people can make informed decisions. We need to invest in sustainability, in proper transit, in an infrastructure that not only gets people from A to B, but it does it in a manner with zero emissions. We need to move our buses to zero emissions. We need to actually follow through on the development plans to ensure that buildings being developed are sustainable. We need to revitalize our parks and our ravines, and together we can. But it's through us being engaged and seeing the importance of this. So thank you.
At the school board, most of our schools actually have green roofs and solar roofs, and we've received many awards over the years. So we're on the right track when it comes to the school board. Also, too, I've encouraged students to walk, bike, and rollerblade to school through 12 months of the year. And I support more bike lanes, of course. But also, what we can do at the city level is actually, encourage businesses to actually make their buildings more green, and also to make our public buildings more green as well. And additionally, build better transit. That will also be useful. And I want to add as well that we need to build multiplex homes rather than single unit homes. Because per household, we burn more green gases than we would in a multiplex facility. So those are just some of the tangible things that we can do to reduce climate change. I'm not saying that that is all we can do, but that's definitely a start. And as a councillor at City Hall, those are the things that I can actually change. And for example, to bring it home, in regards to phases 4 and 5 in Regent Park, when we as a community speak to Tridel, those are the things that we can say to them that is a priority to us here in Toronto Centre. Perfect timing.
I want, as a city councillor, I would definitely want to make sure that this city is there for the generation to come and the generation after that. So definitely some of the things we can concretely do is to ensure that houses and everything, buildings, all adhere to the latest developments, solar energy, wind energy, greening of roofs, electrifying them. All of these things need to be done. But we also need to make sure that families and houses also take benefit of things like this. So put solar paneling on your house, change your water heater, make it more efficient. These are the little things we can do. Recycling, as it is right now, we really don't recycle. Trust me, 3/4 of what we think we recycle actually ends up in the same place it's been ending up for the last 50 years, okay? We need to change that. We need to really start recycling, okay? That, for me, therefore, comes down to two big things: changing our mindset and following through on that change. And I think that is where I, as a city councillor, can lead by example. And that's what I plan to do. To lead by example, follow what I think is best through evidence-based theories as to how to address climate change, and then you watch me, I watch you back. We need to watch each other because we want to make sure that this is here for the children. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and I think this is a very important one because elected officials would like to call themselves community leaders. But in order to be a community leader, you actually have to lead the community. And this is where I think the tables need to be reversed. I think our elected officials need to lead the charge in terms of going green. Instead of penalizing the behavior of us as a community, I think they need to incentivize good behavior in the community. Give us the tools, the resources, and the desire to want to go green, but they, as elected officials, need to change the way they operate. And I think that's where it needs to start. We need to lead by example. So this is going green in terms of transit, going green in terms of all new developments, retrofitting old developments. We already know that we are 20 to 25 years behind the rest of the world when it comes to green initiatives. So on top of doing that, I would like to consult with other cities globally to understand what each and every one of them have done to actually go green. And what we can do, take the best practices from each, implement it within our own city and our own unique neighborhoods, and what will work with us. Thank you very much.
When it comes to climate change, as you know, there is no planet B. This is it. And we need to leave this planet as much cleaner as possible that we can live for our children, which is their future. I'm so glad that every rally at Queen's Park, I see faces of children, and I recognize a lot of people that are living this world and goes to and speak up at Queen's Park, speak up at Ottawa and the city of Ottawa, and also at city of Toronto. But I want to bring to attention the abuses of the oil industry. It's heavily subsidized. We are subsidizing the oil industry. And the other part that really needs to bring to attention is that indigenous people's lands are being invaded by armed guards right now in British Columbia. And they are criminalizing land and water defenders because they are stopping the construction of a pipeline that goes through their land. And that is not acceptable. So if we want to address the issue of climate, we also have to tackle the social justice part. So climate injustice and social justice goes together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your responses. Our next question and final audience question will be coming from the online audience. So any prepared questions from the audience?
Yes. Oh, we got Gail. Yep.
Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah. Hey, I think those in the room can't hear Judith. Thanks. You can hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So this question is really on behalf of a resident who is out of the country, not able to be here, but she works in the school district. And I've heard that sentiment from other parents as well. So considering the issues in schools with security, with knowledge growth, with access, etc. I mean, you know, you got Regent Park here where our kids can't go to a pool and they live in this area. So access is a problem for many different things. So what we'd like to understand is how will you work with school trustees to solve some of these issues? Because these issues are not going away and they seem to be becoming worse, right? Issues in school, security, knowledge growth, kids are getting shot in schools, they're coming out of school with English, math not there for them, and just access to the resources that they need to succeed are not there. How will you work with school trustees to solve these issues? Because these parents are of the belief, and from what I'm seeing, that that there's not that connection to solve these types of issues. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Gail. We'll go. We'll go Caroline, Chris, Colin, Dev, Miguel, Nicki.
Again, we come back to very simple things about collaboration, communication, listening to the needs of each and every one of us and bringing them forth in a manner that makes sense for your requirements and your desires for solutions. Councillor and school trustee should work hand in hand, because again, this is about our future and our residents and our ward and our youth. So we do need to communicate and collaborate with the trustees to make sure that the supports are there, that they have an open door to bring concerns that are being raised by parents and by the school kids themselves, so that we can also work as advocates on behalf. After all, the kids are our future. We absolutely need to give them a safe space where they can be educated, where they can grow, evolve, and develop. And the only way that works is when we all start working together and communicating and collaborating to that end. Because again, as much with the environment, if we don't look after the environment, then what are we doing? But if we don't look after our kids, what are we doing? We need to give them and work together to ensure we're meeting their needs. Because often kids are overlooked and parents can be a bit overbearing. But you need, and so we need to listen to the kids and what they're saying, and we need to do it together. Thank you. And now I'll hand it to the school trustee.
Thank you, Caroline. So I just want to give a shout out to Deborah Williams, who's running for school board trustee. She's been a great advocate for our kids for the last 12 years. And I hope that you will take the time to look at her platform online and support her as my replacement. You know, I've worked very hard over the last 6 years to bring resources not only to our community as a school board trustee, but across the city. I've made sure that places like Lord Dufferin, Nelson Mandela, Spruce Court, and Rose Avenue have social workers in the schools. They have reading coaches in the schools. They have math coaches in the school, even when they don't qualify to have them. Because I look, for the last 6 years, what? for the last six years, for the last six, are you talking to me? Okay, I hope you give me time. So again, for the last six, yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry, could you just say it? What do you need to say?
Stop. How many batteries on?
We have a dying camera.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris.
It's okay. All right. To those at home, please wait.
Sorry, everyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Big hand for the technical team. You get a whole minute.
I don't know why I am anymore. So again, for the last 6 years, I brought many resources here to Toronto Center schools, especially during the pandemic, when 50% of our students were actually in virtual and not in bricks and mortar. And you know, the way the funding formula works is that if you don't have bums in seats in a school, you don't qualify for X amount of staff in the classroom. And so I have actually worked directly with former chair of Toronto Public Health and our senior team at TDSB to make sure that, you know, the staffing levels at our local schools remained, and they did. And I'm very proud of that. And as a result, our students have excelled, and they're doing great. And I'm so thankful that, you know, I was able to contribute to our community in that way. And I hope I'm given the opportunity and the privilege to serve you as councillor.
My late father was a teacher, and he taught here for many, many years. So it was always interesting hearing him coming home and talking about what was going on at the school. I think it's really important that we give all our young people everything that they need, including trade schools, high schools, schools that send them to universities. But what I think we really have to start thinking about is, what do they want? How do they want to develop? And how can we, or us, I as your counselor, you as parents, facilitate this? Because that's the key. It has to be seamless, it has to be easy. We cannot put obstacles before these children. We cannot. And I think that's the key to all of this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try and work as hard as I can with Toronto District School Board to to ensure that, one, there are enough schools. Schools are close enough so it does not impact families that from immigrants or low income who have to pay extra for TTC fare for their kids to go to school. We need to either make that free or we need to bring schools closer. One of the big things I remember I loved doing when I was young was walking home from school with my friends. That was when we could discuss the things that you couldn't discuss with your parents around. And trust me, we needed that free programs. Thank you very much.
So one of the things that I'm hearing in this question is, again, are you okay? You're okay though? Okay. Is, again, something that I've spoken about earlier, which is community safety and mental health. Inclusion, diversity, equity, belonging, anti-racism, anti-oppression, how we can create a system that's belonging for each and every one of those unique individuals that attend our schools, how we can make it safe for them, how we can make this a third space outside of their home and or if they have work, and how this can be their third space. That's what I'm seeing with this. And something that I truly believe in, as I have continuously mentioned this throughout the campaign, that this is something that I'm truly dedicated to, is to show up. It's not just work with the trustee. This is actually be there, be present, see what the students are going through, hear from the students what they would like to see done, understand that this community safety is an issue, and be present. Just as much as the city councilor is out visiting, shaking hands in the community, going to all of the community functions and events like today, they need to make it part of their job to be present in the school system, not just work with the trustee, have a monthly meeting or whatever. You need to be boots on the ground. Again, one job, listen to you, bring your concerns to me, and my job is to address them. That's it. Thank you very much.
As a parent of 3 children, I have experience working with the trustees of the school boards. Last year, my son Michael school, David Mary Thompson School in Scarborough, was a victim of violence. It appears that a 14-year-old killed a 15-year-old, and that is shameful. Many of our students live in poverty, extreme poverty, and I think the role of a trustee is to come to the city council and speak about those important matters. Poverty is one of the reasons we have violence in this city. So we need to address those concerns. Housing, good jobs for the kids' parents, because how are they going to feed their kids? How are they going to clothe their kids if they don't have a good job? So we need to address those issues, and working together, trustees and city councils, we can make great improvements in the city so that we can tackle those important matters that concern to all of us, especially violence in our schools. And I said, as a parent, I'm really concerned about that. Thank you.
I went to a very rough inner city school. I was the victim of violence, was stabbed, had a broken rib. I understand how living in fear can affect your academic results firsthand. As your counselor, my duty is to make sure that our children get to school safely, and that while they are there, they are also safe. I'm not running for school trustee, but I'm not wildly enthusiastic about some of the decisions that were made by the previous trustee, which include banishing police from the area, and so police no longer patrol around the schools, and also defunding lunchtime support, which provides both community and a degree of security in the schools. But that's not my job. My job as city councillor is to make sure all of us, and that includes our children, are safe from the home to the school, inside the schools, and I don't care who the trustee is, and then on the way home again. I believe that firmly. If you can feel the passion in my voice, I don't think I can speak more without getting very, very angry about this topic. It's egregious that our children should be in any form of fear. And this is so basic, so essential to what we need in our community that I'm just appalled at the nonsense I've heard from others.
Thank you. I now invite all the candidates to share their final thoughts and closing remarks. You each have 2.5 minutes to express yourselves. And the order that we'll follow is Chris, Colin, Dave, Miguel, Nicki. I'm so sorry. The order that we'll follow is, we will begin with Chris and we will end with Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you again for allowing me to come out here today and to represent and to speak with you. You know, I do have a proven leadership of leading in this community and advocating for this community and bringing forth positive change, not only to our community, but across the city. I'm very proud of this work. I wouldn't change a thing, quite frankly. And so, you know, and again, I want this community to be a place to live, to work, to raise a family. But again, it has to be affordable. It has to be safe, and it has to be commutable. And again, I have the proven leadership to do those things. I've been very fortunate to have had the endorsement of former City Councillor Papneja when she was still alive as school trustee. And I'm equally as pleased to announce today that, you know, I've been endorsed by her daughter, her daughter today. So I'm very pleased about that. So I look forward to working with you and working with the community to bring forth this positive change. Thank you.
Gentle beings, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad that you took the time out to come and just listen to us. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. To be your counselor, I really want your voice. I want to listen to what you have to say. I want there to be communication. But I also want you to understand that any decisions that I make are going to be made on evidence. I'm going to stress that. It's going to be made on the best evidence that I will have to make that decision for you. Okay? I'm going to look into the issues facing us: policing, racism, all of these concerns, housing, climate change. All of this impacts us. But at the bottom of all of this, this is still Ward 13, Toronto Centre, the lucky ward. And I want us to remain safe for your kids, for us, to make it affordable, to ensure that justice, everybody is treated equitably, that we assert and make certain that people with disabilities can move around freely and comfortably. That is what I want. I want Toronto to be better every day than it was the day before. Toronto, creating Toronto 2.0. My name is Colin Johnson. You have heard me speak. Thank you.
First, I want to thank everybody for organizing this wonderful event. I also want to thank everybody here for attending and for all of the amazing questions that you've challenged each and every one of us here today with. I am not going to actually end by saying why you should vote for me. I think each and every person here did a wonderful job of sharing why they're passionate about their community. And I'm sorry, the reason why this gets me emotional is because the people of Ward 13 are very unique human beings. We are tenacious beings, and we are people that would much rather turn out today, listen to a bunch of great passionate people that want to share what their plans are, but also incorporate you in that, than leave our communities. We would much rather stay here, see it, change it, fix it. And each and every one of us, we know what is going on in our communities. We know that we are upset. We know that we want change. We know that we want to drive things forward. And that's why we're here. So what I will say is on the 24th, make the right decision for you. the decision that speaks to you, that speaks to your heart. Make that decision. Vote for the candidate that you truly believe will represent you best at Toronto City Hall. Thank you very much.
I want to give a big shout out to all the organizers of tonight's event, to the nice people, the Regent Park TV. Thank you so much for all your technical work. I want to thank Denise and company and all the people on Zoom. I think we have 48 people on Zoom right now. So that's amazing. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for allowing us to express and answer your questions. These are really important questions as we are running to become elected on October the 24th. I tried to say this, but I forgot that I used to have an employment. I used to work for the city. I used to work for the Toronto Zoo. And unfortunately, I lost my job unjustly. I lost my home. I lost my family. I lost my children. I became homeless with my dog Fido. So I know the experience of what it is to be living on the streets. I know what it is to live on food bank. I know what it is to live on Toronto housing. I know how it is to protest on the streets. I don't protest on the street because it's a hobby. It's because I want to raise the voices of the homeless, the voiceless that has been always not able to express themselves. So I take this job very seriously to express and tell City Council and the Mayor, hopefully it's not John Tory, maybe my good friend Isabella right here. So thank you everybody. On October 24, please take your friends, go out and vote. Let's change Ward 13.
I began by telling you why I live here, why I'm running. It's because I love Toronto Centre. I fell in love and that love hasn't changed. I've seen us suffer as a society, as a community. We have to change. And you have an opportunity to affect that change. It's quite unusual. Usually it's the same old, the status quo. And most folks don't bother to come out and get informed. And so I applaud you for doing that. But make no mistake, this is a very important decision. Lives depend on who you choose to elect as your next city councillor. We haven't talked about the mental health and addiction crisis right now. That has to be on the agenda. We haven't talked about personal safety and accessibility. We haven't talked about the gridlock. And we haven't really adequately talked about housing, all of which we speak to on our website. I ask you to consider not just who is of good heart, because there are many people here who are of good heart, but I ask you to consider who will do the best job for all of us. Not one party, not one particular point of view, but for all of us. Because although we have our differences, we have more in common. Inclusionary zoning, we already have it here in many ways. Some tall, some short. We have mixed-use buildings, small businesses, not enough, of course. But this here in Toronto Centre is a jewel of how to do things right if we follow through on the execution. This job is a lot about details anymore. It's not about going out one-on-one, one by one, although that's part of it. This is much more like running a very big business. And I'm a small business person as a consultant, but I have the big business experience that's genuinely necessary to deal with 110,000 people. It's not just the size of a small city. Heck, Toronto Centre is the size of a small province. It has to be dealt with professional experience. So consider who has demonstrated good heart, respect, and qualifications, and then please vote for me.
Like all the other candidates have said, massive thank you. Massive shout out to those on Zoom, those of you who've sat through patiently listening to us all. Just incredible to see this level of engagement. So massive from the heart. Thank you. Because as we've all talked about, in the beginning, why we've chosen to run. And we've chosen to run because now is the opportunity to effect meaningful change. Change that makes sense. Change that we can do together. Change that holds the city to account, that we really do hold each other and our city to account, and that we work together. We build on social inclusion and social cohesion. We ensure that in this ward, which is the most diverse ward, a lot of the same challenges are being faced, but the nuances are specific to the area. And we need to listen and work together to achieve it. At the beginning, when we asked why were we running, and I said how I've seen the changes over the years, and not all of them have been for the better. We have left our vulnerable behind. We have not looked after each other as residents, as neighbours, as newcomers, as our seniors, and all the greatness that brings the diversity of this city together. And you do need a professional to represent you at City Hall. I have years of experience in the private sector. I am not a politician, as you can clearly tell. I have worked in the private sector. I have been a small business owner. I used to own a restaurant and a pub. I know and have learned and have embodied the importance of service. This is what this role is. This is not about more of the same. And I recognize that there is a belief and that there have been certain insinuations and endorsements that have gone out for one or two candidates. You don't have to follow. You make an informed decision. You listen to what has been said. You check out my website, carolinemurphy.ca. But more importantly, don't. Pick up the phone and have a chat. Because I am here for you. And don't follow what other people are telling you to do. Follow because your voice matters and your vote counts. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much again to all our candidates for being here and taking out your time to be able to provide some responses to some important issues around our communities and being able to address them. And so a big thank you again to you for coming out. Just some announcements that we wanted to make. The first one is regarding the Hello Neighbor app. You'll probably be able to see some posters that are around the space regarding this app to be able to learn more about it and also to scan the poster and download the app. So that's the Hello Neighbor app that you'll be able to see. Also, an announcement regarding a voter pop-up that's happening in Moss Park this coming Saturday. From 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. There's going to be a voter pop-up that's happening. Learn about the voting process and be able to understand how that process works and become familiar with the process. I'll hand it over to Deepika to say some final remarks.
On behalf of the Community Civic Engagement Collective and myself, I would like to thank each one of you for taking the time to attend the discussion tonight and for being here with us. You have been a wonderful audience and your active engagement has made this endeavor so meaningful for all of us. I would like to thank the organizing committee and members of the Community Civic Engagement Collective for working tirelessly since months to put this event together and for giving me the opportunity to be a part of it. As a member of the St. James Town Residents Council, I will be organizing a vote pop-up next week and an information session at the community corner at 200 Wellesley. I will share more information with everyone via email for those of you who have registered and shared. Once again, good night everyone, and thank you once again for joining us. Please don't forget to vote. Thank you. Forget to vote.
Good job, everybody. Good job.
Thank you, Chris.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all of our social media platforms. For more information, check out our website.